Hi class, in this video we're going to be talking about probability and we're going to represent them using tree diagrams and sample space tables. So let's go over some definitions first. An independent event is the outcome of one event has no effect on the outcome of another event. So if I flip a coin and I land on heads, that shouldn't affect what number I roll on a six-sided dice. Now a sample space is my next definition. It means all possible outcomes of an experiment. Now, a tree diagram is just a diagram that I can use to organize my outcomes, and it looks almost like trees with many different branches. And a sample space table is also a diagram used to organize my outcomes, and it looks like a table. So let's go over an example. A coin is flipped and a spinner is spun. What are the total possible outcomes? So for the outcomes of a coin, I could either get heads or tails, right? So to create my tree diagram, I'm going to go H for heads, or I can just write it out here, heads, or I get tails. Now, after I flip a coin, let's say I land on heads, I'm now going to spin a spinner. And there are three outcomes on my spinner. I either land on bear, salmon, or elk, these regions represented by those. So my outcomes are bear, salmon, or elk. And for tails, if I flip a coin and I land on tails, and then I spin the spinner, I also get my three outcomes of bear, salmon, and elk. So this is my tree diagram right here with branches, as you can see. And it shows all of my possible outcomes. So my possible outcomes are going to be, I suppose I can list them out. I flip heads, then I spin and I get bear. I flip heads, I spin and then I get salmon. I flip heads, then I spin and I get elk. I flip tails, I spin and then I get bear. I flip tails, I spin and then I get salmon. And then I flip tails and I spin and I get elk for my spinner. That means for my total possible outcomes, I have 6 possible outcomes. And I'm just using a diagram to show it. Now for B, it says create a sample space table that shows all of the possible outcomes. So just another way to show it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table. I'm going to write heads here. Then I'm going to write tails. And then I'm going to write, if I spin, the results that I get. So I'm going to get bear. Then I'll end up getting salmon. Or I end up getting elk. Now I just write down all of my possible outcomes. So I flip a coin, I get heads. And then I spin the spinner and I get bear. I flip a coin, I get heads. I spin the spinner, I get salmon. I flip the coin, I get heads. I spin the spinner, I get elk. Tails, flip a coin, I get tails. Spin the spinner, I get bear. Flip the coin, I get tails. Spin the spinner, I get salmon. And I flip a coin, I get tails. I spin the spinner, I get elk. So there are also, if you can see here, 6 possible outcomes. I just had to use a way to visualize it. So hopefully the tree diagrams and sample space tables were useful to help you visualize how you can find the total possible outcomes for the situation of flipping a two-sided coin and spinning a spinner and having 3 options. If you don't want to use a visual way, there is yet another method. So I guess I'll just show you right here. So notice there's 2 outcomes I can get from flipping a coin, heads or tails. So I'm going to write 2 here. And notice there's 3 outcomes for spinning the spinner, bear, salmon, or elk. So 3 outcomes here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to times them together. So the total outcomes from flipping a coin and the total outcomes from spinning a spinner, I just multiply them together and I get 6. So I still get 6 possible outcomes from this. So this method is called the multiplication method. So yeah, this is called the multiplication method for probability. It's if you don't want to draw the tree diagram or the sample space table, you can find outcomes just by finding the total outcomes for each one and multiplying them together. Now, for C, it asks us a question. What is the probability of the coin landing on tails and the spinner landing on salmon? So for this probability, I'm going to have the probability of landing on tails, so T for tails. And then for salmon, I'm just going to write salmon here. I could also use S for salmon, but I'm just going to write the whole thing out. So I'm looking for the probability of flipping a coin, landing on tails, and spinning the spinner and landing on salmon. Now in this case, remember from the other video, it's the outcome that I want divided by my total possible outcomes. So the outcome that I want, there's only one outcome, for example, on this table where I can flip a coin, land on tails, and then spin a spinner and land on salmon, right? The only outcome that would work is this one here. So that's one outcome that I want out of 6 possible outcomes. So hence my probability should be 1 over 6, right? Or 0.16 repeating, or 16.6 repeating percent. That's how I can represent all of my possible outcomes. And you can also use the tree diagram to show this because here I have tails, and then from tails I also I spin the spinner and I land on salmon. So there's 6 possible outcomes, but there's only one outcome where I get tails and salmon, so 1 out of 6 once again. So that's how you can find the probability of flipping a coin, landing on tails, and spinning a spinner and landing on salmon. There is also one more way to solve this question, but it's a bit more advanced because it requires you to know how to multiply fractions. So this method, I'll write it as an aside. But once you know how to multiply fractions, you should be able to get it. So the probability, let's say, of flipping a coin. There's 2 outcomes for a coin, but let's say you just find out what's the probability of me flipping a coin and landing on tails. It's going to be 1 out of 2, right? And what's the probability of just spinning a spinner and landing on salmon if I have 3 outcomes here? 1 out of 3, right? Because I have a 1 in 3 chance of landing on it. So once you find the probability for each one individually, to find the total probability, all you have to do is multiply them together. So if you multiply them together, for multiplication, I just multiply the top by the top and the bottom by the bottom. So on the top is going to be 1 times 1. The bottom will be 2 times 3. And 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 3 is 6. So my total probability for flipping a coin, landing on tails, and then spinning a spinner and landing on salmon would be 1 out of 6, just like how I had it before.